Every Christmas, the lights on the big house at the top of Maple Hill glowed brighter than anywhere else in town. The neighbors used to say it looked like a postcard, sparkling, perfect, and yet, strangely lonely. Behind those shining windows sat Thomas Gray, a man who had everything money could buy except company. For 10 years, he spent Christmas Eve the same way, alone, staring at the tree he didn't even decorate himself, holding a glass of wine he never finished. Until one snowy evening, when a knock at his door changed everything. Hey friends, welcome back to Kindness in Action, where real stories remind us that even the smallest act of kindness can change a life. If you love heartwarming stories like this, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and tell us in the comments about a time when kindness made a difference in your life. Now, let's begin today's story. Thomas Gray was the kind of man people whispered about. The youngest CEO in his company's history, brilliant, powerful, and, if rumors were true, a bit cold-hearted. He lived in a house that looked like it belonged in a magazine, but no one ever saw visitors coming or going out. He used to love Christmas once. Years ago, before success came, before he buried himself in work. Back then, he and his wife would bake cookies and invite their neighbors over. But after she passed suddenly, everything changed. He stopped decorating, stopped hosting, stopped caring. Christmas became just another date on the calendar, a reminder of what he'd lost. That particular Christmas Eve, snow fell thick over the quiet town. The streets were empty except for a few flickering lights and the soft crunch of footsteps. Thomas sat by the fire, his phone buzzing with holiday greetings. He didn't answer. He stared at the empty chair across from him, the one she used to sit in, and sighed. Then, suddenly, a faint knock echoed through the hallway. He frowned. No one ever came to his house uninvited. Probably a delivery, he thought, though he hadn't ordered anything. The knock came again, a bit louder this time. When he opened the door, cold air rushed in, along with the sight of a young woman bundled in a worn beige coat and a little girl clutching a small, red-wrapped box. "Hi, sir," the woman said, her voice trembling slightly. "I'm sorry to bother you. We were delivering Christmas cookies around the neighborhood, and my daughter really wanted to bring one to you too." Thomas blinked, unsure what to say. To the little girl, about 5 or 6, smiled brightly and held out the small box. "Merry Christmas, mister. We made these ourselves." For a moment, he almost closed the door. He wasn't used to interruptions, especially from strangers. But something in the little girl's eyes, so full of warmth, made him pause. He sighed, then gently took the box. "Thank you," he said, his voice quieter than usual. The woman nodded. "We live a few blocks down. It's just something we do every year, to remind people they're not alone." Not alone. The words hit him harder than he expected. He looked past them at the dark, snowy street. "You walked in this weather, just to hand out cookies?" The woman smiled. "Well, it's Christmas. Kindness doesn't take a holiday." He gave a small, awkward chuckle. "You two must be freezing. Come in for a minute, warm up." The woman hesitated, but her daughter's hopeful eyes made the decision. "Thank you," she said softly. They stepped inside, shaking off snow by the door. Thomas poured them some cocoa. He hadn't made cocoa for anyone in years. The little girl wandered toward the Christmas tree, gazing up at the twinkling lights. "It's so pretty," she whispered. "Did you decorate it yourself?" Thomas looked at the tree, remembering how a team from a decorating company had done it earlier that week. "No," he admitted. "Someone else did." The girl nodded thoughtfully. "You should try it next time. It's fun. Me and Mommy do it together." Her words melted something inside him. He glanced at her mother, who smiled politely, her hands wrapped around the warm mug. "You two seem to have a nice tradition." She nodded. "We don't have much, but we have each other." "That's enough." Thomas felt a lump in his throat. He hadn't felt that kind of warmth in years, the kind that didn't come from fireplaces or expensive gifts, but from people. Real connection. They stayed for a while, talking and laughing. The little girl asked him questions about the giant paintings on the walls and the sparkling lights outside. Before leaving, she looked up at him and said, "Next year, we'll bring you a bigger box, okay? But only if you promise to smile more." Thomas chuckled. "Deal." When the door closed behind them, he stood there, holding the empty cocoa cups, feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time, hope. That night, for the first time in 10 years, he didn't sit in silence. He baked more cookies using the same recipe his wife once loved, and as he worked, he realized the house didn't feel so empty anymore. The next morning, he filled several small boxes with cookies, wrapped them in red paper, and walked out into the snowy street. He didn't know exactly where that woman and her daughter lived, but he went door to door, handing out treats to neighbors, smiling awkwardly at first but feeling lighter with each step. People were surprised, some even thought it was a joke. But soon, laughter and conversation filled the air, and Thomas found himself surrounded by warmth, laughter, and community again. Every Christmas after that, Thomas kept the tradition alive. He baked cookies, decorated his tree himself, and invited everyone from the neighborhood to his home. But he always saved the first box for the little girl and her mother, the ones who knocked on his door when he needed it most. Years later, when Thomas retired, he turned the company's annual Christmas bonus program into something new, a fund to help single parents and struggling families through the holidays. When reporters asked him why, he simply said, "Because kindness knocked on my door once, and I learned to keep it open sometimes." The biggest change begins with the smallest gesture, a box of cookies, a warm smile, a few kind words. You never know whose heart you might touch, or how your kindness might ripple through their life. So this Christmas, remember Thomas, the man who once waited alone, and the little girl who reminded him that love still finds its way, especially when we share it. Thanks for watching Kindness in Action. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need a little hope today. And remember, no act of kindness is ever too small to change the world.